What's love got to do with it? What's love but a second-hand emotion?
Greetings from Castlegory, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, without further ado, I'm gonna plunge right in. And before starting on the questions, I'm going to make one or two observations with regards to questions that were asked. First one is, who were the ladies in waiting? The one immediately closer to the Queen was the Marchioness of Lansdowne, and the one beside her was Lady Sarah Keswick. Lady Sarah Keswick is married to the cousin of my great love, James Buchanan Jardine, and the brother of somebody who I have to say I have always thought was one of the most attractive men. His name is Henry Keswick. He is very cuddlesome. And if you like cuddlesome men, he is just the man for you. He's also very entertaining. I haven't seen him for ages, but I have to say he's someone who I always liked. So those are the ladies in waiting. And I think the present Queen doesn't call them ladies in waiting, but they are ladies in waiting. So whatever she calls them, that's what they are. The other thing that people commented upon, and which I think is worth noting, is Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, who was the gold stick in waiting. And I don't know if you notice it, but Princess Anne is one of the few women who transcends gender. She wears trousers, dresses, whatever she wears, she is Princess Anne. She is almost, without being, I need to choose my words carefully because this is YouTube, but she really is beyond gender in a way that a very few other people in public life are. I mean, the Queen, late Queen, for instance, was always very much feminine gender. The present Queen is definitely female and only female. Princess Anne is beyond female. She is beyond gender. Tell me what you think. That's my thought. I've often thought it, but it strikes me more and more the more she is in public life wearing uniforms and not skirts. Heather Justison says, Lady C, Barbra Streisand's memoir dropped today, and while I don't think she addresses this directly, it has brought up rumours of a love affair with the king. Any truth to the rumours? Because it is tasty news. Well, I'm going to tell you what I heard all these years ago, and I don't think that my information would be far off the facts. Prince Charles, as he then was, found her extremely appealing as a woman. Evidently so did every other man who fell into her orbit. They became great friends. They have remained friends. insofar as I am aware, there was no love affair. You know, Prince Charles, as he then was promoted as a great Lothario. He was never the great Lothario that he was presented as being, because he was always too sensitive and he always wanted relationships that were comforting and comfortable and were more than just the physical. People who know him very well, and I'm now including his late former wife in that number, would say that he was never actually that driven by, I need to choose my words carefully because this is, sorry, this is YouTube. He was never driven by the baser impulses without the more elevated etheria kicking in. He was never one to just be totally carnal, full stop. And my understanding is that he had flirtations, but that he was never quite the Jack the Lad that he was made out as being. He did have flirtations with actresses. He had one with the actress Susan George, if I remember correctly. He had one with Barbra Streisand. But was it a love affair? No. It was a flirtation. So that's my understanding. I could be wrong. Ask Mrs. Brolin. She might be able to tell you. But I suspect that of the way she handled James Brolin in the lead up to their marriage, where they were abstinent and they wanted the relationship to be more than just a physical exchange, that what I was told about Charles and Barbra Streisand is most likely accurate. Sorry for the gossip. Faye Hart says, hello, Lady C. Hello, Faye Hart. I was appalled by Harry's behaviour yet again today. That of a lout. An hour before His Majesty the King opened Parliament, there he was, wearing his bottle tops and making jokes. So disrespectful of the veterans. Well, yes. Harry appeared on behalf of the veterans in the United States, in quotes, as a former, well, as a veteran himself. And he gave a rather jocular speech. Of course, he had to get in the fact, his obsession about being a ginger, and the gingers are an endangered species. No, they're not. No, they're not. They've always been in the minority, but they've never been endangered, and they're not about to start now. Then he was bedecked in his 4 medals, but he left off the coronation medal, interestingly enough. So he knew that would be picked up. And he was right that it would be picked up, and it would cause speculation, and it would increase the chatter about the story. Now, of course, since the state opening of Parliament is in the morning in Britain, and we are at least 5 hours ahead of the United States of America in terms of time, was there really any necessity for Harry's performance to be dropped as a spoiler just before the King's state opening of Parliament, the first one of a king in 70 years? Was it really necessary? Rather tasteless, but that's not the end of it all. Because Harry's people then managed to brief the press that he hadn't been asked to Charles's 75th birthday party. Interesting that, because my information is that Harry and Meghan's people are the ones who briefed the press that they had been asked and turned it down. Then, when everybody except me, I didn't run with that story because I ran with what had really happened, because I made sure I found out what had really happened, and that Harry and Meghan had not been asked to the King's birthday party. They then say that, and this is a quote close to the Sussexes, said, they had not received any invitation and were unaware of any celebrations until the stories came out. Then, wait for it, I'm sure the Duke will find a way to reach out privately to wish His Majesty a happy birthday, like he has always done. Harry is such a good son. And then, wait for it, this story is being positioned in a way to make it look like the Duke is snubbing his father, which he is not. Considering the trip to Kenya didn't go well, this might be a welcome distraction. So they managed to get the boot in several ways, except according to my sources and according to people in Kenya as well as in Britain, the Kenyan trip was actually a roaring success. Yeah, there are problems. There have been problems from the time the Mau Mau wanted back their country. There were even really, in reality, problems before the Mau Mau wanted back their country, because really the colonization of Kenya was pretty unnecessary. But this was a 19th century European land grab, with all of the great empires grabbing as much land as they could in Africa and elsewhere. I think you might be able to detect where my sympathies lie in this direction. But all things considered, the trip was a roaring success, I am told. I think we can safely leave that one alone and go on to something rather more elevating, if that's the right word. Susan Reich says, what a stark contrast. On the one hand, you have the Waleses who are thriving. They're hardworking, devoted to charitable causes, family-oriented, regal, compassionate, and loyal. And on the other hand, you have the Harkles. They attend pop concerts, drift along aimlessly, grift off of others, put out puff pieces, and attempt, big block capitals, to upstage the royal family. As they spiral downward, every action or comment of theirs reeks of desperation. Susan Reich, I agree with you. They are desperate and they have performed the rest of the royal family an invaluable service by shining a very bright spotlight on how elegantly, gracefully, decorously, and admirably the rest of the royal family conduct themselves. But you know, I don't think that we should actually fail to give credit where it is due, because by Harry and Meghan's bad behaviour, diverting attention which otherwise wouldn't exist onto the activities and good behaviour of the rest of the royal family, they are actually performing an inadvertent service. Oh, I'm sure they haven't done it deliberately, but they have nevertheless provided the light that actually shows everybody not only how dreadful they are, but how commendable the rest of the family is. Really interesting. And you know, William and Catherine are very committed and dedicated to their roles. And they are committed to the service that their roles will require of them. And I think they do a brilliant job, very commendably. They are such good embodiments that it's actually almost impossible to find fault with their performance, which puts me in mind of my second dog, Popsy Miranda. You most like to think, where's this heading? Well, I'll tell you. Popsy Miranda was the perfect dog. She was so well behaved. I used to say to her, Popsy Miranda, if I didn't have to commend you for being so well behaved, I would never have to say anything to you because you're so well behaved. I never have to criticize you. I never have to tell you no. I never have to tell you to do something. You do exactly what you should at all times. So I would consciously acknowledge what a wonderful dog Popsy Miranda was. And I hate to lighten it, but well, everybody knows how much I love my dogs, and I have to tell you, I absolutely worshipped Popsy Miranda. She was so wonderful. But I think Catherine and William have a lot of Popsy Miranda about them. She was incidentally very beautiful too. The vet at Elizabeth Street, which was the clinic that I used to take her to, he used to say, Popsy Miranda is the Brigitte Bardot of dogdom, the young Brigitte Bardot of dogdom. She was so beautiful and she walked with a real little wiggle. She was just heaven on earth. So, it's very easy when people and animals are always impeccably behaved to start to take them for granted and not acknowledge what a commendable way they are behaving in. So I would purposely do it with Popsy Miranda, and Harry and Meghan have shone such a light that people are doing it in contrast with Harry and Meghan. But without the contrast, maybe people would just take William and Catherine for granted. I say that for what it's worth. Lady C, I saw a pic from Katy Perry's show. Celine Dion was there and getting all the attention instead of Medusa. Celine was keeping her head down to not draw attention to herself and her son. Sure enough, if Medusa can't get attention, she goes to where the attention is. Very well observed, Anita Flores. In the pic, you see Harry's balding head squeezing through the crowd, and Medusa was behind him, grinning from ear to ear. The cameras, the cameras. So they talk about privacy, but don't give it to others. Also, have to mention Karma was there. Remember when the dastardly duo mocked William due to his hair loss? Karma has come and sat smack on Harry's balding head. It looked like a giant egg was trying to escape from the mop in the center of his head. Hello, Karma. Well, I did see the clip. After reading this, I had to look at the clip, and I saw it. There were Harry and Meghan determined to get to the center of activity, which was where? Yes. Where Celine Dion was. Interesting, no? Well, I don't know if you noticed, but Harry looked, cool, you see? Just chill. Cool for days. Cool bad, you see? And I'm not even Jamaican. And I'm cool. Harry looked as if he was still up in the stratosphere even when the plane landed. Cool as a rasta after a worshipful spliff in honor of Rastafari, otherwise known as the Emperor Haile Selassie. But what was also rather interesting was who Harry had sitting beside him. Ken Griffin, who I think I mentioned in a previous broadcast, is an American billionaire who has been trying to buy the Telegraph newspaper group with Sir David Marshall. Interesting, don't you think? Well, that has led to a lot of questions, which people are speculating upon. Now, I actually take a fairly relaxed and loose view of things because Ken Griffin is interested in the media world. If he were not interested in the media world, he wouldn't be trying to acquire a British newspaper group, a relatively right to centre right newspaper group, the Telegraph, which I actually think is an excellent group. I thought they flourished under the Barclays. And there is evident, as I think I have said before, an outside chance that Sir David Marshall and Ken Griffin will get the Telegraph Group, but they are not the front runners in the race. So the fact that William Morris Endeavour will have organised for all their clients to go to support one of their clients, it's not accidental, and nor is it ominous, and nor does it mean that there is actually a conspiracy for that Harry and Meghan's good friend Ken Griffin is going to take over the Telegraph and is going to turn it into a woke left-wing organisation. Change, we're all in favour of change and security and change. And security comes in dollar bills, doesn't it? As I take tea classily. I think it's something worth watching, but I do not think that it's necessarily ominous. You know, people of different political complexions are perfectly happy to rub along together as long as they have other things in common. Fame, celebrity, renown, prestige, status, these are all things that induce people of different political persuasions to end up as strange bedfellows in bed together. Just only some of the time, and never literally. Enigma 9605 says, Lady C, do you think that his wife embarrasses Harry when she exhibits such a grovelling, desperate stance to try to befriend celebrities? After all, Harry is the son of the King of England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, head of state of Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and 53 other Commonwealth countries. Technically, he's not the head of state of them. He's only the head of state of the Commonwealth countries that are monarchies. The ones that are republics, he is not the head of state of. He is the head of the Commonwealth. And those states have their own heads of state. So I make that distinction while I'm reading it out. With 1,500 years of historical background of monarchy, our royal family vastly outshines any celebrity that Hollywood has. Couldn't agree more. Clearly, his wife has no concept of who Harry really is. Surely he gets exasperated. Sadly, no. Sadly, no. My understanding is that Harry thrills to Meghan's vulgarisms, that Harry absolutely adores the fact that she is as pushy and graceless and undignified and plain plumb embarrassing as she is. I would imagine that there is a part of him that thinks, but it's a small part. Harry, he used to have a very good touch where the public was concerned. He used to be able to have the common touch, which meant that he could be jocular and somewhat undignified, but he didn't let himself or the side down. But Harry doesn't really have true elegance. William is an elegant personality, and it shows in his demeanour, it shows in his gracefulness, it shows in his hand movements. There is something decorous about William, and there is something indecorous, indelicate, and rather oikish about Harry. Always was, but not as bad as since Meghan taught him, gotta speak with your hands, everybody, which of course, if you really are a good speaker, you don't speak with your hands. People should be listening to the thoughts that you are conveying via your words. But I suppose if you have nothing to say, you need to fill the air with all sorts of activity. Windshield wipers for days and weeks and months and years. But no, sadly, Harry is enough of a maverick and is enough of a rebel and enough of an oik. He has the soul and the spirit of an oik. He always did. That is why he was so popular in part, but it was contained. It's no longer contained. It's now everywhere, and it's inelegant. You can be the king of a country and lack grace and elegance. The fact that Harry is the son of a king, the grandson of a queen, will be the brother of a king, doesn't mean he's not a spiritual oik. He is. Kitty Fan says, the rumour in the States is that all the big stars met on the tarmac and hugged. They were surprised to see Paps there. Paps never show up for the biggest stars. They don't know where the stars are. The answer became clear when the Harkle clan saw children arrived showing up in their multi-SUV convoy. We have arriven, class has arriven. Classy me. No one hugged Meghan on deboarding. P.S. Meghan wore a short black dress to the Katy Perry concert and showed right out. One commentator put the pics of Meg in full stride next to that of an ostrich in full flight. Well, rather on. The resemblance was uncanny. I'm going to say it again. My information is that people in Hollywood tolerate her because they are thrilled to have access to a genuine prince. But most people that I know of and have spoken to cannot abide her. They find her pushy and dreadful and vulgar, and one or two have said common. That's not a word I like, but I'm going to quote them nevertheless. She grates on people's nerves. She gets their backs up. She is inelegant in the extreme. But you know, and I'm going to say this as a blanket statement, although I normally resist coming to blanket conclusions. But it's been my experience that most successful and well-placed Americans, whether old money, new money, lots of money, or established with little money, are very hesitant to say no, more so than Brits, and certainly more so than continentals. I mean, the French will tell you no sooner than say yes. In Britain, we do not shy away from elegantly saying no, but even people who will be happy to say no usually say yes the first time they're approached, because they are taken aback by the temerity of the pushy person who's asking them the question. I've seen it happen time and again. It's happened with me as well. You know, I found myself saying yes to people and in situations that I really didn't want to say yes in. And with the passage of time, I have not only learned to say no, but it hasn't happened for a long time, but towards the tail end of my yesing, I would go back and say no. I'd come up with an excuse, trying to be delicate, but I would claw back the affirmative. People don't, in social situations, in professional situations, especially in the entertainment world, where everybody's your best friend for the length of time that there's a possibility of a camera capturing how wonderful they are. Because really, there is an element of hypocrisy that is actually odious in the entertainment world, and anybody will tell you. Now, I'm not saying that there are not really nice, decent, honourable people, because there are, but it's a world of yesers and yes men and yes women. Yes, 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 even when they don't want to say yes, which is why people have been avoiding Meghan, because they don't want to say yes. So I suspect she's catched as many lifts as she can on private planes. Let's keep Katy Perry out of this. But with everybody else. Hence why she's now reliant on William Morris' endeavour. But you notice Audible have denied that they were going to be paying Meghan more than they were paying Obama. They denied they are having anything to do with Meghan. That was yet another one of the stories that Meghan and her people have floated. I do not believe that Ari Emanuel floated that story. I believe Meghan herself floated it, because my understanding is that Meghan goes behind the backs of her PRs, her official PRs, and places stories to big herself up. And I'm sure that's right. I don't think Ari Emanuel would have been dumb enough to fly a kite that she's in line for Audible, because he will have known that Audible could quite possibly do what they have done, which is deny the fact. And every time there is a denial of this nature, it lessens the value of her brand. It makes his job more difficult. Justice Warrior says, how is it that Hollywood people are still willing to give them lifts on private jets? If they are really so unpopular in America and all celebrities are aware of what grifters they are, why are people still willing to entertain them? It's so confusing. Well, Justice Warrior, I don't think it should be confusing. Uh, when people in social situations, if they have a degree of good manners and civility, they will acknowledge the existence of someone. If they are not very sophisticated, they will acknowledge it with greater enthusiasm than the situation warrants, or if they are less confident socially. When they are very sophisticated and very confident socially, oh, one will say hello, but how you say hello is the deciding factor. And I mean, of course, if you're in a good mood, you might be nicer than you would otherwise be, but you're still not going to be warm and friendly. You're just going to be civil. So that means that when Harry and Meghan are around, and Harry is far more likable as a personality and an individual than Meghan is. She is good at grabbing attention from the cameras, but he is much more personable and he is much more relaxedly personable. She is gung-ho personable when oh, I'm so into you. Oh, I just love you. I just think you're the most marvelous thing since sliced bread. Oh, I'm just covered in enthusiasm for you. That degree of enthusiasm puts people off because they know it's not sincere. It's suspicious. It gets their backs up. However, my understanding is that Meghan and Harry have been finding it more difficult to catch lifts off friends. But that doesn't mean that arrangements can't be made through their professional contacts for them to have a quid pro quo situation and be offered a flight, as happened the other day. I mean, it was all William Morris Endeavour people there. You know, don't think for a second that Harry and Meghan organised it, because they didn't. They are not popular. They are not entertained very much. People don't want to deal with her. I'm sure he on his own would be far more sought after and far more welcomed than they are. But I hope that answers the question. Because I'll tell you, in the upper reaches of worldly existence, I don't want to use the word society, people will tolerate people they really actively dislike if it is in their worldly interest to do so as well. I've seen it happen time and again. I've seen people be superficially on cordial terms with people they can't stand. I remember saying once to, he's dead now, and I won't mention his name, because the person he said it about is still alive, a very, very high-profile earl. And this person said that, was really disparaging about the earl. And so I said, well, I couldn't resist it. I said, well, Adam, why are you accepting his invitation to go shooting? She couldn't resist it, which was really a huge put down on my part. And guess what he said to me? He said, well, it's a good shoot and there are interesting people there. Our host is just the price we have to pay. In other words, to have a good time. Benefiting from his hospitality, everything he had to offer, it was worth putting up with his rotten personality, was what this friend of mine was saying. I was absolutely chilled. I thought, well, if I don't like somebody, I don't want to be in the same room as them. And if I have to be, I make sure I edge myself away in such a way that I don't have to see them. But to accept an invitation twice a year, as he did, from somebody he didn't even like, not worth it. Brickhouse says, Lady C, I look forward to your daily videos and have a question for you. Based on your extensive knowledge and personal experience living with a narcissistic personality, how much true love and affection can Meghan have for her children? I worry that they are so isolated as to not have the benefit of becoming well-rounded, secure, and perhaps even loved individuals. Your thoughts, please. And by the way, I have yet to see you wear a colour that doesn't completely flatter you. Thank you very much. That's the luck of the draw, my dear. I can thank the good Lord for that. It's nothing to do with me. It's all to do with the good Lord, and I am grateful for that. So, but thanks for the compliment. I don't think that narcissists are capable of loving anybody. I say that as somebody who was supposedly my mother's golden child while I was growing up. And I can see that my mother trained me up to be her companion. And because I was the most amenable of the four of her children, and also I think because people said I looked like her and we sounded exactly alike, and we had many superficial mannerisms, I think there was an element of vanity attached to it as well. But really it was for companionship. I was giving her what she wanted and needed, which was companionship. And I was never allowed to disagree with her. I was never allowed to contradict her. I was trained up to be a very obliging. And and I thought my mother loved me. And my father went to the trouble of letting me know before he died that my mother had systematically betrayed me and my interests for years. He didn't do it to be cruel. He did it because he obviously felt I needed to know the truth and that I would never have alighted upon it had he not presented it to me. And I'm very appreciative that he did. But as soon as I became competition for my mother, because she could not tolerate anybody having any attention except herself. She was the only person who was supposed to have attention. And as soon as all my problems were sorted out and people were on and on about my looks and blah, 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 she turned like a viper and tried to burn me on my face. That's to actually disfigure me. I mean, that's pretty heavy-duty stuff, I would have said, wouldn't you? And I now realize my mother never once ever loved me. I was useful, and for the full length of time that I supplied her with what she needed, she was prepared to pretend that she loved me. And as soon as she didn't need to pretend anymore, and because I had ceased being the source of supply to her that she wanted, she not only set out to damage me within the family and amongst my friends, and even with boyfriends, but she actually tried to damage my face by burning it with a lighted cigarette. I don't think it's possible for a narcissist, a fully blown narcissist, to love anybody. What they love is what you are giving them. And when you cease giving them for whatever reason, then they turn on you like the viper that they truly are. Serene Hayes says, Meghan rarely let the cat out of the bag when she remarked that Catherine wasn't any different behind closed doors. She thought it was all an act. Nope. Catherine is true class in public and especially behind closed doors. Serene Hayes, I have read that out because I think you're right. Meghan did not realize the praise she was giving Catherine when she made it clear that Catherine has integrity, that what you see is what you get. Now, obviously, nobody is 100% in company the same that they are in private, and they're certainly not 100% in public the same that they are in company or in private. But they are essentially the same. For instance, somebody might in public be really annoyed at something and be very curt, while in private they'll come down like clodhoppers. Or, they might say, oh, drat it, in public, while in private they'll use slightly more colourful language. But they are essentially the same person. And there's very little variability between them. What came across wasn't only that Catherine is the same person privately and publicly, but that Meghan is an entirely different person publicly from what she is like privately. And that showed that Meghan is essentially artificial, and she didn't even realize what she was admitting to and how she was praising Catherine. And I'm going to end with an observation of Alice O'Brien. Lady C, do many people even care about Harry and his wife anymore? That's a very good question, and I think the answer is nobody, that with a few notable exceptions, rarely cares about Harry and Meghan anymore. What people care about is, when are they going to get their comeuppance? You can look at a play and enjoy the play and the drama and the antics without liking, that is, caring about the people in the play. I mean, many of the Greek tragedies you don't really care about all of the participants. And I don't think people really care about Meghan and Harry anymore. In fact, I think if it were not for the fact that people now really want to see how is this play going to end? When are they going to get their just desserts? I think if people felt they are never going to get their just desserts, I think people would begin to lose interest in a way that they will not lose interest as long as they feel that Harry and Meghan will get their just desserts. But what I have observed, and I would point out to those who haven't observed it, is that every time Meghan and Harry come up with the nonsense that they come up with, whether it is, making sure that they are at a concert so that they can steal the thunder of William and Charles sort of thing, or that they can brief against his father and, at the same time pretend, oh, we're so fabulous and we're just having the time of our lives. Do people really fall for it? No. I think people are becoming more and more aware every time Harry and Meghan do stuff the way they do, that they are exposing themselves. They are our revenge. They are Charles's revenge. They are Camilla's revenge. They are William and Catherine's revenge. I used to say about my late brother-in-law, Ian, who was the 12th Duke of Argyll, when people used to say, aren't you burning up for revenge after the destructive way how he tried to damage your life? I said, no. I say, my dear, I don't need to indulge in revenge. Not only did God say, revenge is mine, saith the Lord, but I just sit back and everything Ian Argyll does sabotages, ruins, screws, mucks up, destroys, damages his life. I don't need to do anything. He is my revenge. And Harry and Meghan are everybody's revenge. They just don't realise that they are our revenge against themselves. And on that note, I'll say, I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please keep the questions and comments coming in so that I will know what you would like us to be speaking about. Okay, thank you so much. God bless and goodbye. If you have truly enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and God speed.